2 weeks ago, I released this virtual pet game I've been working on for the Playdate called Pocket Pets. I said I was going to make a small content update for the game, so here it is. First step was to address some various bugs. Honestly, I didn't playtest the game that much, so I expected there to be way more bugs. But there was only a few that stood out. One was the display was too small here, and the experience text would overflow, so I just added a bit more space. Also, there was some sort of bug with the pet becoming invincible in the battle minigame, but I couldn't reproduce it, so I just added some redundancy checks. Lastly, I was having some serious performance issues for the list that I had, which I thought at first was an issue outside of my control, but then I realized I was doing something really dumb, which was essentially reinitializing the image every frame. If you don't know, this is doing a disk access operation every time, which is very slow. So after I preloaded all the images and cached them into a table, it fixed those performance issues. I added a clicky sound effect as well. Another issue that came up was the game doesn't give a lot of direction for how to play the game. To help alleviate the issue, I created a Google Doc that goes over everything in the game, and I added a menu option that leads to a QR code which links directly to the dock, sort of like the manual that comes with the Tamagotchi. I got several comments about how people wish there was more of a chill game mode to earn gems, since the fast-paced battle minigame contrasted heavily with the relaxing nature of the virtual pet genre. I think I was weirdly hyper-focused on this minigame that I missed the bigger picture, and it made sense that sometimes you would want to do something relaxing instead. Also, an issue is that if you ended up feeding your pet the wrong foods that do no damage, you would have to wait until you get enough seeds and gems from the wish functionality before you can start to even earn more gems, which is pretty frustrating. I decided to go with the exact opposite of the battle minigame, with something that was very low lift. I honestly thought for a long time, but I couldn't think of anything except for making another fishing game. But I decided this one would be a lot less complex than my last one though, with just casting and reeling with no time limit or line snapping. I started off by creating these simple animations for the fishing rod and line, as well as creating this background. As you can see, I went with a first person approach for this. First thing I implemented was the animations in the game, and when the line hits the water, I replace the line animation with a line created with code. This way, when you crank, I can make the line pull smoothly in. As you can see with the screen updates, I did some simple optimizations with it, but honestly, with a slow game like this, I don't really think it's necessary. The water was looking a bit static, so I made it bob up and down. Then I added a little bobber at the end of the line, which I guess isn't that realistic since the bobber should probably be further up the line, but whatever. I indicate that a fish is hooked by the bobber bobbing up and down, and then when you reel the line in, you get a fish. If you reel a line in before a fish bites, you don't get a fish. It's really simple, but it wasn't really meant to be anything complex, just something relaxing to pass the time idly and earn some gems. Of course, your pet should be there, so I added your pet wandering back and forth around the dock. When you feel like you're done fishing, you can press B and I'll show you how many fish you caught and gems you earned. It's 2 gems per fish. Then afterwards, you can just go back to the home screen. The final task for the fishing was to add some sound effects, which I just stole from my other fishing game. To pick which game to play, I just reused the same list I made for the food. There's a lot of empty space, so it looks like there should be a bunch of other game modes, but it's fine. Another thing I got some feedback on was creating some sort of evolution tree like in other virtual pet games. To be honest, I think I kind of backed myself into a corner here, since what I think I should have done is started the player out with some generic pet and had it branch out into different pet types. But I can't really revert everyone's save data now, so I decided maybe a simple compromise was to add some variations to the pets. I kind of toyed around with the breeding mechanic as well, but I think there was too many combinations for me to make it work. I created 2 possible evolutions for each pet, for a total of 22 new pet types, as well as a generic blob baby pet. When you first start off, every pet will start as a baby, but when you reach level 6, your pet will evolve from the baby to the middle stage, which is mostly the current pets that I added with some exceptions. I just switched them around since they didn't make sense. So if you have the game, in some situations, you might find that your pet is different than what they were before. Then, when you reach level 16, it will evolve into one of the 2 different possible evolutions. It's not really a perfect implementation, but it should provide some more sense of progression than what I had before. So before I finish off the video, I want to give some updates about the channel and what I have planned going forward. So the first thing I want to talk about is the Gladiator game. A few weeks ago, I took a break from the game because I wasn't feeling happy with how things were progressing, and I was feeling kind of burnt out, to be honest. There was actually a lot of content I needed to add to the game before I felt like it was actually fun, and I think I severely underestimated the amount of work required. So what I started working on was Pocket Pets, which for me was a way to prove to myself that I can actually commit to and complete a full-fledged game, unlike the other basically tech demos that I've produced in the past. I was pretty happy with what I was able to do, since it kind of taught me what my current limits are and what I'm able to do. I'm still pretty early on in my game development journey, and I don't think I'm quite ready for the scope that Gladiator required. I also realize I'm way more motivated when the scope is small and it feels like it's something that's achievable. So for now, I'm putting Gladiator on the shelf, and honestly, I don't think I'm going to complete it, but I really did like the combat, so I might take some of the code from there and use it in a future project. To be honest, I felt pretty disappointed in myself, since I feel like I made a promise I couldn't keep. but I think I learned some pretty good lessons, and I have a way better understanding of what I'm capable of. So going forward with the lessons learned, I'm hoping I'll never have to cancel another project again. I want to thank everyone for being pretty understanding about that. And with that said, I feel like personally I've done everything I set out to accomplish with Pocket Pets. So that means I can start working on my next game. From what I learned from Pocket Pets and Gladiator, I feel like I have a pretty good understanding of what the next best project is for me. So my next idea is a platformer with user-generated levels, which should hopefully help alleviate some of the issues I was having with creating my own content. So you can think of it like Mario Maker, but for the Playdate, and with my own twist. I also realized I want to get back into creating more tutorial content as well, even though it doesn't get as many views, since I feel like there's a lot left to learn for myself and to teach to others, and more value that I can provide to the community. A couple things I have in mind is a tutorial on scene management and also a platformer after I finish the platformer that I'm planning on working on. Alright, that's it. See you next week.